Welcome back to Power Director Made Simple. Let's jump right in with showing the third method to zoom in on a display of either a still photo or a video clip using CyberLink's recommended pan and zoom tool. Now once again, I'll use the same media files as before. I'll first drag down to my timeline the logo truck, which is a still image. I'll click Edit, and then from the Image tab at the top, I'll select Tools and then Pan and Zoom. You are looking at about 21 pre-canned pan and zoom templates that somebody at CyberLink thought would be a good idea. In my opinion, nearly all of them are useless. For example, I'll click on the one towards the bottom that says the inverse of U-type. And it is automatically applied to the selected clip on the timeline. Notice in the preview window that it starts out already somewhat zoomed in. I'll hit play to see what CyberLink thinks is a worthwhile pan and zoom template. It goes up and over and then back down. It's just a big upside down U. Now in all fairness, it's really just a beginning point or a suggestion that the user can and should modify. If I click on the little letter I on the clip and select to edit the pan and zoom, a window opens showing how everything was accomplished, including 3 keyframes shown as the yellow diamonds along the bottom. I'll click OK to close that window without making any changes. In a procedure that is somewhat different in removing any other applied effects in templates in Power Director, this one requires removal by clicking on the Reset button in the upper right of the window, which I'll do right now. The one template that we are going to be working with is the user-defined template at the very end of the list. When I click on it, the same pan and zoom window as seen before opens, only this time nothing has been added just yet. I'm going to do the same zoom effects done in the previous 2 videos, but watch closely to see if you can spot anything different in the pan and zoom tool. First of all, the pan and zoom window is so kind as to automatically apply the initial keyframe at the beginning. That is different from before. Now next, I want to move the playhead to the 2-second position, but there is no ruler. Now that is different than before. I can always just enter it into the time code along the bottom, or I can just click and slowly drag the playhead to that exact position. In the previous methods, if you remember, I wanted to zoom in greatly, so I entered a scale factor of 4.0. I'll now enter the same value of 4 for either the width or the height. Notice a keyframe is automatically created because of a change in values that were just made on the right side. Now next, I want to move the playhead ahead 2 more seconds to the 4-second position. I could drag the playhead to that position just like before, but this time I'll use the other method and enter that time of 4 seconds into the time code and hit return. Now this marks the end of my zoomed in display, so I need to create a keyframe with those same values as the last keyframe. I'll click on the icon that shows a double keyframe with the plus sign, which indicates duplicate keyframe. In the small window that opens, I have only one choice, and that is from the previous keyframe, so I'll select that. Another keyframe is added. Next, I want to move the playhead to the very end, but hitting the N key on the keyboard doesn't work. That is different than before, so I'll just manually click and slide it all the way to the end. The time code now reads 5 seconds, and this is where I want the display to complete its return back to normal. I'll change either the width or the height to read 1.0 and hit return. The final keyframe gets added. Sometimes the pan and zoom window doesn't display that final keyframe at the very end, but we'll see it in just a minute, so don't worry about it. These are now all identical values and times that were entered in the two previous methods. Do you see anything that is different? So far, I believe that I have it set up just the same as before. I'll click on OK to return to the main window. With the playhead back at start, you tell me if you see any differences as I hit play. Whoa, what the hell is this? Instead of zooming in, it zoomed out. Let me go back and check the values that I entered to make sure it wasn't -4 or something totally incorrect. I'll click the little green eye on the clip and select Edit the Pan and Zoom. I'll click on the first initial keyframe diamond, and then the scale values are set to 0, which is correct. I'll click on the second keyframe, and it appears that the scale values are also set to 4.0, which is the same as the other two methods we used. If you look up in the little mini preview window, you can plainly see that the image is zoomed out and not zoomed in. Yes, folks, CyberLink thought it appropriate to inverse the logic on this pan and zoom method and this method only. If you want a zoom value of 4, then the appropriate value would be to set the viewing window to only 1/4, or 0.250. I'll reset the scale to 0.250 and hit return. Now look at the mini preview window, and that is the same view that we saw in the previous two methods. This also means that I need to click on the third keyframe and change those values from 4 to 0.250. Now once that is done, I'm going to preview it right here by clicking on the stop button and then hitting play. Now this time it looks identical to the first two methods. We actually haven't done any pan effects yet, so now is the perfect time to briefly try that out. Suppose during the zoomed in look at that truck, I want to pan over to the driver's window to see who's driving. So let's give that a try. I'll click on the third keyframe and make some changes right here. I'll keep the scale values at 0.250, but I want to change the position. Notice the white dot over that black compartment on the truck. It signifies the center of the viewing display. At this 4-second position, I want to be looking at the driver's window instead. I'll just hover the mouse cursor over the white dot until it changes to a 4-sided arrow, and then drag it up and to the left until I am looking right into the driver's window. You can now see the blue line indicating the exact path of the pan from that black side compartment to the driver's window. And if you're really technical, look at the position values for the X and Y axes. They are no longer at 0.5, but reflect the current location of the driver's window as seen in the mini preview window. Now I'm going to preview it right here by clicking on the stop button and then the play button. And then you can see it zooms in on the side compartment and then pans up and to the left to the driver's window and then zooms back out to the normal display. I'll click on OK to return to the main editing window. Just to prove once again that it works, I'll move the playhead to start and hit play again. It still works just as planned. For now, I'm going to select the clip and then hit delete just to clear out the timeline. You've just seen how the pan and zoom tool works for still images, but how does it work on video clips? Let's find that out. I'll drag down to the timeline the Santa Cruz video seen in the previous video about method 1 where I used the advanced overlay editing window. With the clip selected, I'll click on Edit, and then the Video tab at the top, and then the Tools tab, and finally the Pan and Zoom tool just like before. This time it immediately jumps to the Pan Zoom editing window, and those pre-canned templates are not available for videos. I'm going to set up pretty much the same zoom that we've previously seen, but this time, instead of entering values on the right, I'm going to use the gadgets at the four corners of the display to control the zoom. Using these corner control gadgets might be considered an advantage of using the pan and zoom tool. Notice the white dot is automatically present, so it's very easy to tell where the center of the display is at so that you can set up panning effects if desired. Also notice the initial keyframe has already been entered once again. I'll try to manually move the playhead to the 2-second position, but you can see trying to achieve an exact position manually with a long duration clip is very difficult. This pan and zoom method gives no provision for zooming in on a ruler such as we are able to use in both of the previous methods. I'll just have to enter 2 seconds into the time code and hit return. Now look at the time bar where the playhead is at. It has barely moved over from the starting position. If you ever need to have keyframes spaced only a few seconds apart on a long duration clip, it is going to be very congested using the pan and zoom method. To me, that is a major drawback of using the pan and zoom method. One solution to that problem is to split the long clip into several smaller ones, but then you might have a problem trying to maintain continuity to the display size and position from one clip to the next. Now that the playhead is at the 2-second position, this is where I need to have completed a zoom in. I could enter the scale factor of 0.250 on the right, but instead I'm going to use the corner gadgets on the image itself until it seems to be at the appropriate value. I can get very close to 250, as you can see by looking at the values on the right, where I could go over and change them to the exact values if I wanted. Also note that because I created a change in values, a keyframe was added at this position. Now I need to hold this zoom for 2 seconds. I'll move the playhead over by entering 4 seconds in the time code and then hit return. I'll click on the icon with the double diamonds and select Duplicate from Previous Keyframe. Now next, I'm going to do something a little different from before. I want to pan over to the people on the beach and other objects in the foreground and zoom out some, all at the same time. I'll do this by moving the playhead ahead about 12 seconds by typing in 16 seconds in the time code and hitting return. I'm going to grab one of the corner gadgets and zoom in some more to a value of around 0.130. I'll then move the center point of the display off to the right side and down slightly until I am looking at one of the large tent enclosures on the beach. Because of these new values, a keyframe is created at this time code. I'll next enter 21 seconds in the time code and hit return to move the playhead to that position. Now there, I'm going to grab a corner gadget and zoom out until the scale values are somewhere near 0.67. I will also move the white center point until it is right on top of the nose of my wife. Once again, another keyframe is created. Now that we've had a little fun with creating some panning effects, I'll hit OK and return to the main window. To make it look and sound more realistic, I'll drag down an audio file and place it on an audio track under the video clip. With the playhead moved back to start, I'll hit play. You should now see just what can be done using the pan and zoom tool and just what some of its limitations are. I think it can come in especially handy for slideshows in which each image is viewed for around 5 seconds or more, and then a Ken Burns effect can be performed on each image using zooms and pans to draw the viewer's attention to something specific in each photo. At the end of this video, there is a very short slideshow showing such Ken Burns effects, all done using the pan and zoom tool. Now, so far, I've finally covered the three main methods of doing zooms by changing the scale values, and accomplished pans by changing the position values. There are a few other ways of doing this in PowerDirector, but between these three methods, you have the most control over what you want to happen. Pick and use whichever method suits you best. Thanks to all of you for watching. Stick around for the very short slideshow. I'll see you next time.